The Woox Furiosa Ultra chassis. This one is definitely a looker, but does it have the options you want to match those looks in a modern PRS style build? Precision rifle geared builds need to have a slew of options these days for us to take them seriously. Generally, we want a lot of adjustability, integrated ARCA rails, M-lock, weight modularity, and of course, looks, right? We also need the ability to easily drop our barreled action in and know it's gonna fit our current barrel, trigger, and everything else that we want to go on it, because let's just face it, nobody wants to grind on a brand new chassis. Well, I got that Woox Furiosa Ultra chassis in, and I really began to think, like, what barreled action was I going to drop into that, or was I gonna buy an action and a different barrel? Well, ultimately, I rested on the new Bergara barreled actions. This one specifically is a 26-inch with that heavy PRS style profile from them, because I've had a great experience with the Bergara stuff, whether it was a custom rifle or whether it was a loaner barreled action that I took and put into a chassis. And every Bergara action that I've ever had my hands on just seemed to absolutely perform. So I kind of knew that this 26-inch and 6.5 Creedmoor was gonna do everything that I could possibly want it to do. Also, that raw look of the action and the barrel just seemed to complement that American walnut look the Furiosa Ultra has. Everything from the coat of that wood all the way down to the anodized black. It just seemed that that little bit of stainless steel just made it look right. Then of course I need to determine what did I want to do for a trigger. Well, I just happened to have a Timney hit laying around that was just waiting for a host to go on, so I tossed that in there. Again, I've had very good luck with Timney bolt action triggers over the years, so I figured that would be the right choice. And since this thing is 26 inches overall, I wanted to find the right suppressor here that was going to give me the sound suppression that I wanted, the accuracy I needed, but not be excessively long since I'm already starting with a 26-inch barrel. For that, I turned to the AB Suppressors Raptor. So that's an over-the-barrel design, which I have been extremely impressed with, both in the sound suppression, but also the accuracy and the fact that you can get it sleeved way back over the barrel, so you're not adding a ton of length to your overall setup, whether it's 20, 24, or 26. And of course, upstairs, the glass. Now this is where people really love to dig their heels in and get into an argument online. Now I turned to something my buddy Gavin over at Ultimate Reloader did a review on, and he said that this Theos from Element was one of the best optics he had ever actually tested. And knowing him, his background as an engineer and how he conducts testing, I knew this was probably a very good starting point for glass and possibly the ending point based on how it was going to perform. And of course, I also needed something to keep this thing planted to the ground, so I went with some AccuTac bipod, which I don't think anybody is going to disagree or say isn't an extremely stable and durable platform to use in the way of a bipod. And even though I did set my zero on this setup to some Barnes 6.5 precision match Creedmoor stuff, out there for the range work, I used some really budget-friendly practice ammunition in the way of the Cellular Bellet 140 grain. It's not a match ammo, it's pretty basic. And for the way it performed out there, easily hitting 1,000 yards from a tripod with a 1.6 left wing call, I have to say, for some budget training ammo, it was really good. I picked a buttload of that stuff up a while back when Brownells had it on a really good deal, and I've been using it ever since, and I've been pretty happy with the consistency of it. So if you guys are interested in any of that stuff or anything else you see here today, I'm gonna have a build list link down below, and if you're watching this in your break room, at your employer, cast into the TV so everybody can see it, I'll put a QR code up here for you guys as well. Well, now that we know everything that is in this build, what really makes this Woox Furiosa Ultra chassis any different, right? Because we've got a little bit of that classic walnut look from a stock, yet we're getting the PRS style options we want out of a chassis, merging the two together, giving you looks and performance, right? Looks wise, the Furiosa Ultra, it's an absolute 10, right? That American walnut just has a classic and beautiful look to it. It is extremely nicely worked all the way around that aircraft grade aluminum chassis. You have a fully adjustable stock, length of pull, cheek riser, a matching bag rider, QD sockets, and those quick micro adjustments as far as all those things go make this thing super easy to get set up to your body, and of course, change things out there on the fly. The butt pad is also adjustable left, right, up, down, and is extremely comfortable under recoil. The straight down grip profile is more my style. You do have some machined thumb rest into that center section to make it very comfortable to rest your thumb on. You've got a drop-in design with no bedding needed for the actions that they support. An integrated weight system, so you can add or take away weight as you desired, whether you're doing competition or maybe using this for like a light hunting rig. The barrel channel is 1.2 inches overall. You get integrated M-LOK down that fore rail, integrated ARCA across the bottom, and overall this is 3 inches longer than the standard Furiosa. You do have the option to add Hawkins bottom metal, which is a very well respected name in the industry. And of course the thing is just stupid easy to put together, right? Get your bottom metal, torque 2 screws to the manufacturer's specification on your action, and then you just put your additional stuff on there and you're gonna be good to go. Performance-wise, this is a PRS-built chassis system. Even though it has that American walnut look to it, you're getting all the adjustments and performance of a modern chassis system. You have all the adjustments you could possibly want on there, and it soaks up recoil just a little bit differently than a full metal chassis. I'm sure it has to do with the wood and how it kind of absorbs the recoil impulse, but you get much more of a dull kind of impact than you do kind of that little bit of a twang, I guess you could say, when it comes to an all-metal chassis. That integrated ARCA rail works like a charm, whether you're using a bipod or a tripod. The action, the trigger, and everything just fit very nicely into this chassis. There weren't any big gaps or anything like that, as long as you were using an appropriately sized barrel, since it is a little larger. The Hawkins bottom metal accepted a variety of magazines from steel, P-mags, MDT mags, which isn't always the case with every bottom metal. Sometimes you can run into issues where certain bottom ends just like certain magazines a little better, and even certain actions may like different magazines a little better. There could just be minute changes in how high they fit or kind of how they ride. Even though AICS is a standard, you will tend to see that sometimes some of them like one magazine style over another. And the full-length ARCA rail all the way across that longer bottom end gives you the ability to run a bipod further out, closer in, and especially from a tripod, you can really get this thing balanced quite well. Since it is running a 26-inch barrel with a suppressor on it, you need to have a little bit more space to work with if you want to perfectly balance that rifle on it. And in the 120 plus rounds that I have through this setup so far, whether I was working it from the ground on a bipod or from that tripod, I just didn't find myself having any complaints with anything about how the thing was set up or how that chassis performed and felt under the recoil. So yeah, there is a lot of good stuff here when it comes to the Furiosa Ultra, not only in the looks, but of course the design. But is it any better or is it just different? Is it nicer than a traditional stock or even some of the nicer adjustable stocks out there? I would say yes. This is a precision style chassis build. This was literally built for PRS, precision rifle shooting. So you're gonna get the looks of the stock if that's your thing, but you're gonna get all the modern options of a PRS chassis system, which is what most people want out there, especially if they're gonna do some kind of competition. Is it better than a full metal chassis or a metal and composite polymer style chassis? Well, I don't have a laboratory, so I can't say that it's 0.2% better than X chassis or X stock out there because I can't consistently give you a scientifically exactly the same test from one to the next. But what I can say is if I can take this thing in that rifle from a kind of budget-minded tripod with basic non-precision 140 grain cellular and bellet ammunition on that tripod to 1,000 yards without issue once getting the wind call, I don't think any of you out there are going to have any complaints with the performance of this chassis system. And you're probably definitely not going to have any complaints with the build quality or the looks. And let's be honest, in the PRS world, we see some pretty wild builds out there. Everything from different chassis styles, the colors, the different patterns that people will paint their PRS rifles in, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Although looks may not be everything, and this thing is absolutely a 10 when it comes to looks, I've never really heard anybody out there say, you know what, I really wish my significant other was just like 5% less attractive. Some of the other basic specs you might be interested in when it comes to the Furiosa Ultra is this thing weighs 4.5 pounds, but it is adjustable due to the weight system that's integrated inside of that rail. You can add or you can take away, and all of those options are available from Woox. It's drop-in ready, so you don't have to do any bedding or cutting or chopping as long as you get the right barrel, right? So it's a 1.2 inch profile in there, so you can get a pretty thick barrel, as you can see by the Bergara that's in there. And they have a bunch of different options out there for you. Remington 700 in clones, they have Howa, they have Weatherby, they've got some sour stuff. There's just a lot of options, and they have a full list on their site that you can definitely check out, but all of those are going to be drop in, so it's a couple of screws and no real issue. The length of pull here is pretty generous, from 13.5 to 15 inches overall, So whether you're 6'4" like me or you're a little bit shorter, this thing is gonna fit you and you can get it dialed in right to where you want it. The overall length is 34 inches. You get 10 inches of that inlaid M-LOK for all of your accessories your little heart could desire to put on there. And you have that full ARCA rail underneath. One thing I will add about the ARCA rail is the way they have machined that in there, it's extremely comfortable to carry around right underneath that forend. Sometimes those ARCA rails are like really thickly pronounced underneath the chassis system. And when you're running around with that thing, it's just uncomfortable. So it was very well executed in the case of the Furiosa Ultra. What are some of my favorite attributes here with the Furiosa Ultra? One, the looks. She's a 10, right? I think we've established that. But the feeling under recoil here was really quite different and quite nice. It's much more of a recoil like a very high-end stock because that wood seems to soak it up and you just kind of get that dull impulse rather than like some kind of twanging like snap. I guess that's the best way that I could describe it. So instead of that kind of hard snap, you get just a dull push. And I kind of like that. And the buttstock, obviously the pad back there does have something to play in that because it was nice and padded and thick and soaked up some of that recoil too. The overall length of the system now, adding 3 inches from the standard Furiosa is very nice because if you're running a 24 or a 26-inch barrel, especially with a suppressor on there, you can get that bipod way out there. And you also still have the ability to bring that bipod closer in if you need to get a little more elevation. And of course, balance out a little better if you are running this thing on a tripod. And of course, the ARCA and the M-LOK just open up the world of accessories and mounting options for you. No matter what it really is, you can probably find a way to get it on there between ARCA and M-LOK. And the last big positive attribute is those on-the-fly quick push button adjustments on there. And they're kind of micro, so they're super small. You can get it really dialed in. So you can also witness mark those with like a paint marker or something. That way, if you want to store it all completely collapsed, you have your paint mark on there and you can quickly adjust those to that and not have to like undo screws or something like that or unscrew wing nuts or whatever's on your stock or chassis system now. So that to me is just a huge positive because safe storage is like limited and sometimes not tall enough. So you need to like compress the stock and all of the comb height and everything. So it's nice to have those quickly adjustable. I can witness mark it, pull it out and just be good to go. Now that was a lot of positive stuff, but is there anything that I would change or think should be added or at least an option when it comes to the Furiosa Ultra? Because coming in at $13.99, you really want to maximize what you get. Now there are two things I'm going to say would be very cool to have as an option. The first one is going to be some form of bridge for the front end of that rail because maybe you want to have a little bit of fun out there at night with either a night vision setup or a thermal setup. And I think that would be a ton of fun. And I don't think that making some form of bridge would be too hard for them to do because it's been done before. And I think it would actually be a decent selling option for them. So I would love to see that. As far as anything else, back on the center section, I would really like to see the ability to put on kind of like an extended thumb ledge. Now they do have those nicely beveled kind of areas right there for your thumb. But some people out there in the PRS world really like those big, thick, pronounced thumb ledges to ride on. And I think having the ability just to put 2 small screws in there, maybe like a nice wooden thumb ledge or like a mix of wood and anodized aluminum would not only look super cool, but just give some PRS guys that are into that another little option that they could add on to kind of personalize it to their shooting style. Now, is it worth it? Because this is the question that everybody asks when it comes to something new or a part or something that they're looking at changing into. So for 1,399 galactic credits, I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed with what you can get. At about $149, if you need the bottom metal, they do the Hawkins version, which is really great stuff. And I think that's an absolutely fair and great price considering everything else that's available out there in the market that's on the same level and has the same similar build and adjustment styles. So if the looks fit your desires, the performance is definitely going to fit your needs. And everybody, if you are interested in doing the long range thing, just get out there and do it. It's a ton of fun. I have learned so much over the past year. I've had so much fun going out there and learning and challenging myself, whether it was a 5.56 SPR, 6.5 PRC, even bigger rounds, having some fun out there. It's just a great time. You're gonna learn a lot. You're gonna challenge yourself. You're gonna meet some amazing people, and maybe you can go out and do some competitions and have some fun to kind of prove your skill and keep growing, because once you start competing, you wanna do more and more and more. But it's just an absolute blast. So if you've been thinking about it, get out there and do it. It's been one of the most fun times of my life this past year doing it, as you can probably tell by the smile on my face, but I just look forward to it every single time that I go out there. Make sure you guys get subscribed to the channel. That build list will be linked down below. Keep doing things out on the range. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. And I will see you all on the next one.